Our movie opens in the magical kingdom of Frel. In Frel, magic is a common practice. Things like unicorns, fairies, giants, elves, and ogres are regular things in this world. When we meet Ella, she's still a young baby, being raised by her mother in a household fairy named Mandy. One day, a fairy who's infamously bad at giving gifts named Lucinda gives her the gift of obedience. Because of this spell, Ella no longer has free will. Growing up, she does everything she's told, literally. When someone says, "Bite me" in an argument, she does. When she's told to dig in for a meal, she ravages the food. And when she's told to hurry, she gains super speed and rushes to do her task. Her curse is unavoidable and irreversible. One day, her mother dies from a sickness. On her deathbed, she orders Ella to never tell anyone of her curse, forcing Ella into a life of secrecy. Over time, Ella grows up to be a beautiful woman. However, her father's finances have deteriorated, and to mitigate the situation, he marries into wealth. Her stepmother, Dame Olga, and her stepsisters, Haiti and Olive, are very different from Ella herself. Her stepmother is crass and materialistic, while her stepsisters are simple-minded and uneducated. It isn't long until her curse gets her into sticky situations. When her new sisters force themselves into her life, Ella must unwillingly sacrifice her closet space, as well as her mother's necklace. As a means to make some money, Ella's father goes on a long business trip, leaving her with her mean stepsisters and cold stepmother. During a class at the Frel Community College, Ella and Haiti are on opposing ends of a political debate. While Ella greatly dislikes the current king and Prince Char because of their use of slavery and segregation, Haiti loves him, mostly because of Char's good looks. The argument is fairly one-sided, but when Haiti starts giving Ella commands mid-arguments, Ella loses the debate. With Ella's strange behavior in class, Haiti begins to realize that Ella cannot disobey an order. Elsewhere, Prince Char and his uncle, Sir Edgar, are on the way to a mall opening in Frel. When Char's father allegedly died after an ogre attack, Edgar took over as temporary king. Now with Char being the proper age, he'll soon ascend to the throne. While Char is a much kinder personality with no animosity towards the other races, his uncle is the opposite. Edgar tries to convince Char that the giants and the ogres are growing more hostile, but Char's not concerned by the situation whatsoever. Cinema recap here. We've got a little challenge that'll take 5 seconds, and it will change your life forever. You ready? All you gotta do is like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and you'll receive 10 free years of good luck. It's as simple as that. At the mall opening, a statue of Sir Edgar and Char is revealed. Edgar tries to make a speech, but the crowd of young women only care about Char. Meanwhile, Ella and her friend try to protest Edgar's cruel treatment of the other races, but is quickly stopped when Ella is forced to go home by Haiti's command. The unrest of the crowd comes to a boiling point, and Char is chased off stage by an onslaught of fangirls. On the way home, Ella runs into Char, who's being chased down by his crowd of adoring fans. The two hide behind a wall as the crowd continues to pass them, aimlessly searching for their Prince Charming. Expecting Ella to swoon over him, Char is pleasantly surprised by her clear distaste for the prince. The two walk in the opposite direction of the crowd, with Char curiously picking at Ella's brain. She explains her distaste for Char and his uncle's ways of ruling, to which he sheepishly has no response for. As the pair make it down the road, Ella realizes she left her purse behind, and Char insists that she stay in place while he gets it. Having no choice but to wait, Ella stands in the middle of the road, unable to move her feet. Unfortunately, a speeding carriage is coming down the road and Char is unable to tell her to move. In the nick of time, Char tackles Ella to the ground, saving her. She reluctantly thanks him, but insists that they will not meet again. This only makes his interest in her grow, but before he can say otherwise, they are interrupted by Haiti and Olive. Haiti commands that Ella stop flirting with the prince and sends her back to the mall with Olive while she tries her luck with the prince herself. Haiti comes on very strongly and chases the prince away. Back at the mall, Ella runs into Haiti once again. Now aware of Ella's undying obedience, Haiti and Olive force Ella to steal from a store. At first, it's small things, but then Haiti has her steal a pair of glass slippers. The large item gets her caught, and she's commanded to run, ensuing a chase. Her obedience gets her into more trouble, and the chase is only stopped by the guard's command for her to freeze. Back at home, Ella is scolded by Dame Olga. Mandy suggests that she was put up to it, but Haiti takes the opportunity to place the blame on Ella's best friend instead. With no choice, Ella lies to Dame Olga. and places the blame on her best friend. Much to her dismay, Ella is commanded to send her away and tell her that she never wants to see her again, that she could never be friends with a different race. That night, heartbroken by what she just said to her best friend, Ella decides that she must find Lucinda and have her lift the curse. Mandy agrees and introduces Ella to her boyfriend, a book possessed by a man she accidentally trapped in it. Benny the Book has the ability to show Ella the whereabouts of anyone she asks for. Very similar to a magic mirror, she's able to find Lucinda shopping for a wedding in Giantsville. Together, they plan on tracking her down and freeing Ella of this curse. Ella sneaks off in the middle of the night, leaving her stepfamily with one last gift: poison ivy bouquets. On her journey, she finds a trio of men bullying a poor elf. A fight's instigated, and it's only thanks to the elf's commands that she's able to win and scare the men away. She frees the elf, Slannon, and after some resistance, reluctantly agrees to go to dinner with him. At his home, they're spotted by a guard and met with an onslaught of overly cheery elves that welcome them with music and dance. At the pub, the music doesn't stop, and Slannon explains that he's not like other elves. While elves are typically very cheery, he, on the other hand, wants to pursue a career as a lawyer. But because of Sir Edgar's laws, he's not able to pursue any such career paths. In his rant about the unfair laws, the identity of Benny is revealed, and the three of them are formally introduced. Back at the house, the stepfamily makes themselves at home. A letter from the prince arrives, and the invitation to the coronation ball, meant for Ella, instead lands in the hands of the stepfamily. Ella and Slannon witness a band of enslaved elves being loaded into a wagon, and Ella convinces Slannon to join them on their journey so he can talk to Prince Char about the oppression of his people and his ambitions to be a lawyer. With some hesitation, Slannon agrees, and Ella adds yet another friend to her party. On the road, the two run into a band of ogres who make it clear that they intend to eat them. Because of Ella's obedience, she has no choice but to let them begin cooking her without a fight. Hanging over the boiling pot, Ella is frozen by the spell. It's only by the efforts of Prince Char that she's saved and her party freed. After the harrowing fight, Char has the ogres at sword point. Despite the stories of ogres being the ones to kill his father, he sets them free, sparing their lives. A little bit shocked and a little prideful, Ella refuses to thank Char directly. He comments that she seems to have a knack for near-death experiences and brushes off the rescue as part of his princely duties. In her own act of gratitude, she helps patch up his injuries, and by the command of Slannon, her party accepts his invite to travel with him and his guards. At some point in their journey, Char and Ella not so subtly notice that they're both single. Slannon uses the opportunity to petition his right to become a lawyer with Char, but all Char can advise is to speak to his uncle instead. Despite him being days away from being king, Char doesn't seem to care about the difference he can make. This upsets Ella, and she rides off ahead of the group with Char in tow. The two arrive at a farm of giants, who are being treated like slaves by the humans. The giants have always been gentle, and Char is in complete disbelief at the whole thing. Finally arriving in Giantsville, the group reach the wedding that Lucinda is supposedly attending. Char begins a heart-to-heart with a friendly giant, while Ella continues her search for Lucinda. Unfortunately, Lucinda left a while ago and is currently getting arrested for flying intoxicated. With Lucinda already gone, Ella informs Char that she's leaving. Despite the opportunity to make Ella stay for the party, Char gives her the choice to either stay or leave. With free will being an option for Ella for the first time, she chooses to willingly stay and spend the night with Char. Her free will is short-lived when the giants force her to sing in front of the entire crowd, but her talents amaze everyone, and she breaks out into an amazing musical number. The song and dance sparks romance in the air, and her and Char begin slow dancing together. More so, Slannon catches the eye of a giant girl. Later, Slannon continues to flirt with the giant girl, while Char and Ella grow closer by a fire. The day's experience changes Char for the better, and he decides to free the giants and repeal the mandate on elves. Seeing this change in Char wins the affections of Ella, and she willingly kisses him, telling him he'll be a great king one day. It isn't long until they arrive at the capital, just in time for the coronation ceremony. In the castle, Ella's stepfamily's already there, getting ready for the coronation. Along with her stepfamily, her father's there on business. As expected, Char's fan club, led by Haiti, worship the ground he steps on. At the front, Slannon is denied entrance to the castle and left behind while Ella and Char continue inside, unaware of his absence. When Ella and Char get into the castle, they're chased by Haiti and the fan club into a corridor where they meet Edgar. He says a series of unintentional commands that force Ella to listen and act out of character, making her literally hop to the records room. The snake that has been traveling with Char reports to Edgar, saying that she is a strange individual. Furthermore, it tells Edgar that she's been brainwashing Char on their journeys. He notes how dangerously influential Ella is and chooses to keep a close eye on her. In preparation for his coronation, Char dresses into fancy garb and tells his uncle about the interesting things he's learned from Ella. He insists that he wants to change how things are run, something his uncle nonchalantly brushes off as the mad ravings of a boy infatuated by his new girlfriend. It's only when Char tells him that he intends to marry Ella that Edgar begins to take him seriously. However, their conversation is interrupted when Haiti and Olive make a ruckus to gain an audience with Edgar. In his office, Edgar interrogates the two sisters for information on Ella. In exchange for Char's hand in marriage, Haiti divulges that Ella is unable to say no to an order. Just as Ella locates Lucinda, she's approached by Edgar. Now aware of her spell, he forces Ella to do a series of dances to test his theory. Clearly being right, he uses the opportunity to order Ella to kill Char at midnight. Despite her best efforts, she cannot say no and takes the dagger, unwillingly accepting the task. Edgar reveals that he's the one that killed Char's father in order to become king, and he intends on doing it again to maintain his kingship. He orders Ella to keep his scheme a secret and sends her on her way, now with an urgent deadline to rid herself of the spell. Ella approaches her only lead on Lucinda. Unfortunately, she's not in the retirement home that she believed her to be. With no other leads, Ella decides that the only thing she can do to save Char's life is to stay far away from him. She writes him a letter communicating her regrets and wishes him well before walking away from the castle. On the streets, she finds Slannon and asks him to chain her up to a tree far from the city. Unable to tell him Edgar's plan, she insists that he gathers the giants, elves, and ogres to help him retrieve Benny, who was left behind in the castle library. In the library, a worker puts Benny in the trash, thinking he's a blank book. At the ball, everyone but Ella is in attendance, while Char depressingly sits on his throne. As the clock gets closer to midnight, Ella continues to struggle against the spell and tries to get out of the chains that she put herself in. The predicament summons Lucinda, and even after Ella desperately begs for her to take the gift back, Lucinda refuses. Too in love with herself, Lucinda's convinced that all her gifts are perfect. She tries to show Ella her kindness by unchaining her and dresses her up for the ball. Furthermore, she commands Ella to hurry to the party, making things much worse. At the party, Char has resorted to dancing with Haiti to ask questions about Ella. Their dance is interrupted when Ella speeds into the ballroom, a grand entrance. Char asks Ella to come with him to the Hall of Mirrors, not knowing this is where she was commanded to kill him. Now alone, Char asks Ella to marry him just as the clock strikes midnight. It seems all things are lost at first, but by the strength of her heart, she tells herself to stop being obedient, breaking the spell. Unfortunately for her, the dagger she was given remains in her hand. It looks like she intends on killing Char, and Edgar and his guards arrest her on the spot. Confused by what just happened, Char lets them take her away. In his chambers, Edgar tells Char that Ella was part of an uprising planning to kill him. He forbids Char from seeing her and leaves him alone, already planning his next scheme to kill him. On the day of the coronation ceremony, Slannon arrives in town with his group of elves and giants. They find Benny in a recycling bin, and he warns that an evil scheme involving Ella and Char is in the works. When Benny reveals that Ella is trapped in the dungeon, Slannon motivates his team to work together and stop Edgar and his evil scheme. Even the ogres agree to help because of their shared hatred for Edgar. With the combined effort of all the races, Slannon is able to free Ella and discover that the crown is poisoned. At the coronation, Ella stops the crowning just in time. All hell breaks loose and everyone begins to fight. Edgar releases ninja knights to kill Ella, and despite what happened the previous night, Char sides with Ella. In the midst of the chaos, Ella tells Char everything that transpired. She reveals that Edgar plotted to kill Char and was the one that killed his father as well. When Edgar's snake attempts to bite Char, it confirms Ella's accusation and Edgar is exposed. He reveals the truth to the kingdom, and out of his own stupidity, He puts on the poison crown. With Edgar finally gone, Char proposes to Ella and, by her own volition, accepts his proposal. Haiti tries to stop her, but no longer under the spell, Ella takes her mother's necklace back and passionately kisses Char. It isn't long until the two get happily married and drive off into the sunset with a musical number. Ella Enchanted is a Blessington film production with lead actors Anne Hathaway as Ella and Hugh Dancy as Prince Char. In a few situations, Ella's obedience actually benefits her. Can you think of any way obedience would be a good thing? Let us know in the comments below with the hashtag CinemaRecap.